Welcome back to your hour. Joining us now is Branson Freeman. He is a mental health therapist at Mental Health America of South Central Kansas, commonly referred to as MHA because that's so much easier to say.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. And who wants to say MHASCK? MHA just rolls off the tongue better. But thanks for having me again.
That's my pleasure. So, shall we start with the basics?
Oh, absolutely, definitely.
So, how do you define therapy and how does it help?
So I think of therapy can be defined just depending on the therapist you're working with. Like, for example, you have your physical therapy, but we focus more on the mental health area. On my way here, I was thinking I would define it in like 2 words: processing and practicing. You're able to process your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your life history, your current relationships, and over time we practice the coping skills to navigate those. And I think it could be helpful for just about anyone. We see a lot of youth with our organization, especially with our new Ember Hope program that started over the summer. So we'll see some youth throughout the day for just a day program, and they'll get some individual therapy throughout the week too. But it helps families, individuals. Sometimes there's also group therapy, like I talked about last time.
Mm-hmm. So how does someone know if therapy is going to be beneficial?
Well, my opinion has always been that there's always something anyone can learn from it, but we all know insurance has their requirements, so sometimes it's just knowing that there's on some level, a clinical level of medical need. That's always harder to define, but like some kids who are having trouble in school academically, that can be a justification. Someone having just general behaviors in the community, legal troubles. I just like to think of it as anyone who is just looking for like emotional regulation, managing their unhealthy thoughts, their inaccurate thoughts, or learning general coping skills. Those are kind of the most common reasons people have kind of come in for therapy. And knowing they have something to work on what that is, and that might be our first goal, is figuring out what that is together.
Okay. Yeah, because sometimes, you know you're a little off, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a great follow-up too, is sometimes people just don't have the words to define what they're feeling, what they've experienced, and when it comes to trauma in particular, just being able to talk about something that's happened to you will rewire your brain its natural defensiveness. So, you can think about something all day, every day at home, and hopefully process it well, but being able to put it out into the world and then get genuine, honest feedback from someone who's licensed and recertified through the state, I feel like you're going to get much more accurate, better feedback than maybe talking to a family member or some of the AI things we've seen online, which can be beneficial, but more often than not, it's going to tell you what you'd like to hear and give you what you want to keep coming back, but it's one other topic.
Okay. So you mentioned something earlier about therapeutic rapport. Can you explain that?
Yes. To me, I think of that as kind of my therapeutic approach is just the foundation. Basically, just the therapeutic relationship, being able to connect with being to or the family you're talking to. I like to think of it as like if your doctor was only treating the condition versus the entire person. Mm-hmm. So in our case, though I don't have the medical background to be able to support some of those things, it's nice to be able to hear people when they talk about those topics and kind of navigate the mental health side of those topics too. But in general, it's just the connection that we have, and I love to cite a study. I even got the name of it. It's by Assay and Lambert, 1999, Empirical Case for Common Factors in Therapy, Quantitative Findings, which is great because quantitative is numerical and not subjective, but it just shows that the relationship between a consumer and their service provider just has a significant effect on their ability to heal, grow. I was looking at some of the findings and even mentioned that having less than 10 sessions is more common than not, and people who have up to 25 usually have specific needs. So it's kind of showing me that if you can establish a good foundation in the rapport side of things, you won't perhaps spend as much time with them in therapy, and they'll learn the skills on their own to navigate life on their own terms.
So what's your take on group therapy?
Group therapy, my big love to say is a good group runs itself. Whether it's my horticulture group, an anger management group, one of our psychoeducational groups, which has more like relaxation skills, coping skills, daily living skills. I think of our groups as just great ways to connect with people who have not just similar life experiences to yours, but kind of like talking about trauma and how it gets past our natural defensiveness. Hearing another person talk about it kind of invites us to also do the same and kind of look past some of those inherent biases we might have. But yeah, I think group therapy, just depending on what someone's looking for, it's often hard to get them to come into it the first time.
Really?
But once they come through, I've seen people just enjoy them very much. And like I said, a good group runs itself. If I weren't in the room, I feel like they would still be learning things from each other. But that's what's nice about having the therapy license in Kansas is I can take those psychoeducational groups and apply them to more of a therapeutic level. Not to do any like therapy in the groups, clinical, with topics about beyond like our practical fundamental skills, the day-to-day living.
Okay. So, what is psychoeducation?
Oh, definitely. I probably would always use that in almost any of my sessions. Essentially, it is just the process of, where did I highlight? Okay. Oh, here we go. It's just learning information about our medical conditions, mental health diagnoses, medications, potential side effects, kind of anything that's in the therapy session that's not the clinical work we're doing with the client. So it could be teaching them about the cycle of certain relationships, the 5 love languages. Teaching kids coping skills could be some of that psychoeducation. And then we get into the practicing when we practice it. And let's say they do so between sessions, they may come back and then we do some processing of how that practice went, and then we might be back to practicing again. So I think of those 3 Ps as probably the big ones for me, is the psychoeducation, or just what I can share, practicing and processing.
Okay. So, what are some of the benefits people might gain from therapy?
Oh, definitely. Like with any treatment, there's no guarantees. I like to think that there's some of the natural benefits that come with it, having someone that you can talk to, someone you connect with that you might not have outside of a therapy environment. But I find that people may benefit from just finding that they feel calmer. Some kids are looking for focus in schools and finding those ways to just being able to succeed in whatever their environment they're in, and also feeling more connected to themselves and those around them. Another big dynamic in therapy I find is finding out what values my consumer has and helping them live up to those values. I've even started to define that as like how I would define my own happiness. Excuse me. Is just living up to my own values and making sure my values are ones that I would support or wouldn't mind sharing with everyone around me, kind of thing.
Well, Branson, it's a real pleasure having you here today, and we're already out of time. I can't get that, but...
Oh, I know, like so many more minutes left, and now we're at the last 10 seconds. So, here we are. But I really enjoyed coming by, and hopefully I'll be by in the future.
Okay. Well, it's good to see you, and we'll be back with